Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of otherworldly music, songs that might transport us to another plane or feel otherworldly or just kind of give us an out-of-body experience. Today we're going to be looking at a song from the band Swans. I have a very limited exposure to this group, so it's going to be interesting hearing something that might seem a bit otherworldly, which is not something that I typically associate with the group. So let's dive into this song. It is called Helpless Child. Interesting. The pulse that I felt in the previous section, I was feeling the offbeats as downbeats. Ooh, interesting.
The muddy water runs beneath your folds. You won't let me breathe.
It's got kind of a country vibe to it,
You won't let me
but there's a lot of distorted elements, especially in the guitar.
Now you be the stranger and I'll be the white-skinned sun. You blacken my innocence.
it's certainly taking its time with whatever it's doing.
Children were
I'm excited to see where it goes, though.
suffocating down in your damn cave, and you were the mother and I was your sleeping slave. Protect me from violence. Hold me in your cool lips. You drug me with kindness, so I can pretend I exist. Now you be the only child.
You know what it reminds me of so far is like a trippy Johnny Cash.
You feed me with gasoline. I'll burn my name in your head.
Now we're starting to see a little bit of embellishment on that guitar line. Okay. Very distant, muffled. Get this vibe of moving to a different place, like being transported. There seems to be some production fluctuation here as well. Some of these strikes are more or less muffled. There's a lack of like perfectionist precision in some of these elements. something slightly sinister under the surface here as well. Whoa. think you guys might have stumped me on this one. I didn't dislike the opening 4 or 5 minutes. I thought it was an interesting a track, kind of dealt into some sort of negative emotion, sorrow and regret, and I really enjoyed the way that the vocals played along with what was going on musically. I thought it was a perfect fit for that, and I loved not just the range but also the vocal performance. Right, it was that um, sort of like a mixture of regret and defeat in the vocals, and the way that played against the emotions that the song was going through at the time, especially with the guitar chords, which was primarily the only other thing that we could see that was musically structural. And for a minimalistic song, pretty much just a couple of instruments doing some chordal stuff, an atmospheric idea, and the vocals, I thought it worked well. Everything after that 5, 6, 7 minute mark, wherever that was, when we entered into the outro, I just don't get. It sounded like somebody playing the intro to the intro music to Twin Peaks in old like Walkman headphones, those little $10 ones that used to come with the Walkmans, and like it's got a radio tuner built in, and there's some interference coming in with like a heavier rock song, and sometimes it kind of breaks through over this Twin Peaks song, and oh, and also you're like holding the headphones a bit away from your ears. Um, and that's what it's like. Every bit of it sounded frustrating to me. And maybe that's supposed to be what it is. Maybe that frustration ties into some of this regret or defeat, but maybe it doesn't. And that's just the way I listen to it. Like, I wish that the music was clearer, it wasn't as muffled. Everything in the second half of the track, and even bits of the first half, had this muffled quality to it. The heavier rock parts kind of coming in every once in a while, overshadowing but never completely taking over and then leaving. It just it contrasted so hard with what was already being presented. And even like a bit of the warbling effect that I think was overdone by the 15-minute mark. It's those little elements that uh, it just does not come together for me. It creates a sound that isn't completely unlike things we've heard before. We have heard tracks that are where there's two ideas that are completely against each other, right? And it creates all this dissonance and clashing. We've heard the warble before to create sort of an otherworldly or dreamlike state. We've heard muffled production before, and sometimes we've even heard combinations of these, but I don't think I've ever walked away from any of those songs feeling completely frustrated by what was going on. And I think it might be that all of these micro frustrations came together at the same time during a part of the song, which was the whole song. Really, the drum and acoustic guitar and atmospheric aspects from the beginning didn't really change much. The chord progression doesn't change much. There isn't a progression to the song. We do have these other elements coming in, but they're not additive, they're subtractive, if that's a word. The deductive, I think that would be a better phrase. Normally, when we see slow burns like this, we'll see parts come in that recontextualize and add elements to what we've already heard. Maybe it'll implement a new rhythmic idea that will allow us to see the old rhythms in a new light. Maybe it's new notes that create a different type of triad, right? We used to have a dyad that sort of leaned towards maybe something major, and we bring in this third note, and maybe it leads towards something minor or diatonic, and kind of changes the relationship to the notes that we've been listening to. It adds a new layer to what's going on. And here we have a slow burn where every element that comes in fights against what we're doing. And there's a good chance a lot of this comes together thematically when we get into the lyrics. Like I said, I've kind of inferred the emotion that the vocals are portraying, but when we get into the lyrics, maybe we can look at some specific emotions that they're exploring and see maybe how the music is supporting those ideas in the second half. But just on a purely musical level, if I were to listen to this casually, I don't know that I even would have finished it. Oh, that's a lie. I can't not finish a song because there's always a chance that things will get recontextualized, right? We might hear something that doesn't work in the first 7 minutes. In the last half of the song, I'm like, oh, this works completely. I love how they inverted it and brought this other idea to the table, and it completely sheds a new light on what we were listening to. So yeah, I guess that's not fair. I wouldn't have not finished the song, but yeah, I think I would have just been real disappointed by the end of it. And that's not to say that you can't enjoy this song, that there's people out there, I'm not telling you if you enjoy this that you're wrong, or if you find great joy in this, or if it's just like one of your favorite tracks. By no means am I saying that. It could very well be that I'm just missing what's going on here. That's very possible. It would not be the first time that a song went over my head, especially stuff that does what this is doing and kind of goes to a bit more of a simpler idea while also tossing a bit of music theory out the window. A lot of the things that I tend to look for and speak about and relate back to some of the themes and lyrical ideas that are going on aren't really present here. We don't have any notions of song structure. We have an A section that we're in this whole time. We can technically look at the last half of the song as its own section, but I think it works best as a variation on the first section. The foundation is identical. We just get rid of the words and we bring in a more aggressive drum part and an electric guitar. And even those are sort of just interspersed. The foundational aspect is still the spotlight for a lot of it, and there are some embellishments in there that I mentioned. It does evolve a little bit, but not in any way that I think would deem it a brand new guitar section or a brand new riff. It is more of an embellishment on what we've already listened to, some light ornamentation thrown into the chord riffing that we've already heard. And so structure, that's one of the big things I talk about out the window. Chord progression. There is a progression in here. It's the same progression for 15 minutes. So if it's not the exact same progression, it encompasses very similar vibes. It might not be the exact same chords throughout, but I would say that the chordal relationships and the emotions that come about through the progression of the chords is very similar throughout the track. And like I said, even when we talk about slow burns and layering elements, typically what I look at in those layers is how they recontextualize and add elements to what we know. And here it's doing the opposite of that. So it's going against a lot of what I typically look for and speak about when I analyze music. I think this is a song that really relies heavily on the listener getting into the vibe, getting into the atmosphere. And I tried. I really did. I closed my eyes. I attempted to shut off the analytical part to stop paying attention to each individual aspect, especially when I realized that there really wasn't much that's going to be changing. I wasn't going to lose anything by turning off the analytical side. I really just tried to fall into the vibe. And it didn't take long for that electric guitar to show up and pull me out of that. It seemed to actively go against me vibing with what was going on. But I also don't know how much longer I could have just stuck in that because I was already becoming weary of what was going on. There's only so long I can listen to the same four chords without much going on above it that I just become disinterested. Um, so I'm going to dive into the lyrics here first, which is an odd thing. I gave my initial thoughts here. I don't really have anything to add. The big thing for me is the atmosphere, and I've already kind of talked about that. It seems to have these negative emotions to it. The vocals were leaning into that, and that's really all the analytical stuff I have to speak about. There wasn't anything technical going on, so we're going to dive into the lyrics and see if they can give me a new perspective on what's going on in the music. And if not, I guess this is going to be a short analysis. I mean, a 15-minute song, I'm usually going to pull a 50 to 60-minute video out of, and probably be lucky to break 40. All right, give me a second, and we'll see what's going on with these lyrics. Hmm. The lyrics appear to be about some sort of toxic relationship between a child and a parent. But what's interesting is there's continuous uh, phrases being utilized that say that it's not an actual mother and child. In fact, the song starts out with, "Now you be the mother and I'll be the fool," as if to play pretend. This is the role you're going to take, this is the role I'm going to take. A little while down, he says, "Now you'll be the stranger and I'll be the white skinned son." And in verse 2, it says, "And you were the mother and I was the sleeping slave." That's the second time that he's spoken about this other person having the role of a parent, but not being a parent. Although I suppose that could be the purpose of the illusion too. Just because you create a child does not make you a parent. In such words that there's two definitions to being a parent. There is the biological definition, in that you created life, right? But then there's also the more colloquial version of a guardian, right? Someone doesn't have to be your biological father to be your father figure. And there could even be a point in your life where you call them your father, even though that they are not technically, your father, or in this case, your mother. So if we invert that, we could actually say that it's possible that the singer is speaking about a biological mother who is not doing a good job being a parent, being a guardian, and continuing to say this is the role you're taking, even though it's not what you're actually doing. But then there's a lot of ideas of being damaged in this role play right here. So it says, "The muddy water runs. You won't let me breathe. You won't let me go. You've blackened my innocence with sugar and opium." Um, it also says, "You protect me from violence. You'll drug me with kindness, um, and you feed me with gasoline." So I'm not quite sure if all of this is actually. I'm fairly certain it's not all figurative, because honestly, the language here is very metaphorical and allegorical in a lot of ways. So I'm going to assume that a lot of this is more metaphorical. But especially, "You won't let me breathe." I'm not taking that one literal. So there definitely seems to be a controlling aspect in this relationship. There's obviously somebody who's older and someone who is younger, also kind of coming from the title Helpless Child. And the relationship is not very good. There's a lot of controlling elements in it, there's a lot of damaging elements in it. Um, and I'm not quite sure what everything alludes to. Is she literally giving this kid opium? Is she feeding him gasoline? I don't know. it could be sort of a second-hand element where we have a parental figure who is addicted to drugs. And the gasoline, that's going over my head. I don't know with that one. Yeah, but the opium, I think, it's very, very clear as day written there. Blacken my innocence with opium. And it's possible that this child is losing their innocence, losing their childhood by having to take care of this parent who is not always not always mentally present due to the drug addiction. And it's possible when they are present that they are overbearing in a lot of ways and forcing this child to grow up much faster than they should because they have to basically take care of their parent. This is, a story that I've heard and unfortunately seen once before. That it's heartbreaking, and that's the only thing that I can see out of this. Um, it is an extremely destructive relationship, and but see, there's also these other elements in here. He says, "You'd protect me from violence. You'll drug me with kindness." And I'm not, I mean, is yeah. I mean, obviously, he's alluding to a more complex situation than is on the surface. Or maybe this is part of the control, right? You kind of shelter them from the world so that they have to rely on you. And when they get older, they won't have the life experience they need, and their reliance on you will continue into their teenage and adult years, possibly. Again, another type of control, which kind of goes back to the "you won't let me breathe" idea. Um, the last line is interesting. He says, "You'll feed me with gasoline. I'll burn my name in your head." And then it moves into the instrumental. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, especially since the gasoline thing's going over my head. Um, and like I'm trying to carry some of this into the music, and like I said, this is a complex relationship here, I think. Especially when you have the idea of a kid and a parent, especially depending on how the kid's first few years as really having, you know, memories and movement and being able to speak. So, 3, 4, 5 years old, that area. Possibly if this drug addiction took place after that, and he has memories of, better memories of his mother, and trying to contrast those with the idea of, some of the things that he's seen and had to have done to take care of his mom when she's not mentally present. But then also like contrasting those two elements. Who is my mother? And especially most kids tend to rely on their mothers in a lot of their lives. It's I don't know if it's nature versus nurture kind of thing, but that could also tie into it where he feels like he should be able to run to her when he is in need, but he could also be scared to run to her when he is in need. And all this conflicting element, and it can bring into the music some of that as well. The entire ending of the song, like I said, is conflict. Everything that we had, we are introducing new elements that disrupt. We're not actually adding anything that is supporting or growing what we've had. We're actually tearing down what we heard previously. We're interjecting with harsh, abrasive sounds, right? It's not even just that it's a brand new part of the song. It's an electric guitar coming through with this fierce, sharp tone, and it's like I said, it's rubbing against everything that we were building at that point in time. It's bringing in some anger and some animosity. There is more energy at the end of the track in the drumming, in the guitar work, and a lot of that energy might feel frustrated, and not coming from the sorrow that I kind of feel in the vocalist in the first half of the song. I could see this transition, especially as this character, this child, grows and matures, and they're going to have a very wide, conflicting view of who their mother is and was, and possibly will be, and trying to figure out what their relationship is with their parent at that point in time. And I also mentioned that there's a lot of oh, did I mention it? The music being ambiguous? I don't think I mentioned that. I don't remember me saying that word though. I was thinking it though, because I was trying to nail down the emotion of that main idea of the acoustic guitar and the atmospheric stuff and the drums, the bass line part of the song when the vocals were playing, and I couldn't really nail down an exact emotion. It was a lot of things. There is some brightness to it. There's a couple of uh, two chords back to back that, part of the chord progression kind of brings some uplifting positive elements, but it doesn't stay around too long. We go into the next chord and it might induce some sadness or some regret. Um, and we kind of go through this loop. Like I said, there really isn't much movement in the chordal progression. We kind of stick with the same progression throughout the entire track. And so we have these moments of levity, of brightness, pushed right up against the sorrow and the regret and the rest of the the rest of the negative elements, the rest of the negative emotions in this chord progression. And it's cyclical. And everything's kind of pushed together. There isn't any one moment that I would say, "Oh, we're in the sad part of the song." No, it's all just kind of grouped together. You can't really escape it. And the other interesting thing about it is the guitar has this warble to it. You get the strike, you get a nice percussive sound to the beginning of each of these chords, and then we get the fade out with a little bit of like a phasing in and out kind of vibe. And it makes it a bit more ambiguous because it's hard to nail down those notes. They're constantly rising and falling just a hair, getting a little sharper, getting a little flatter. And it kind of makes each of these sections have multiple emotional feelings to them. You get the initial stroke and you kind of get an initial emotion out of that, but the warble kind of bounces it around, and sometimes it gets a little brighter and sometimes it gets a little darker. And I think a lot of this comes together very well with the lyrics that we're exploring here. But I might have to listen to it again, knowing what it's about and seeing what happens there. Especially if I can just turn the analytical side completely off from start to finish and feel the song, and see if I get a different outlook on it. Because right now, like, I appreciate it from an artistic standpoint. I think they did a fantastic job of implementing the emotions of the lyrics into the music. But I'm not entirely sold on the song as a whole. I still think it could have been done in half the time and still explored the same emotions and not really have lost anything. I'm not sure if the length is justified, I guess, would be a way of me going about that. But again, that's just me. I'm one person. I don't ever want to sit up here and call myself some sort of musical authority. I am simply explaining what I have felt and explored in this song, and you are more than welcome to disagree with me. 100%. I don't think there's anybody anywhere who could stand up and call themselves a musical authority that their opinion is the only musical opinion anyone could have. Everybody explores music differently. Everybody has biases to what they enjoy and what they don't enjoy. And yeah, that's just that's why I end my every video with, and those are my thoughts on Swans' Helpless Child. That's really all they are. Sometimes my analyses can help people have a greater appreciation for what they listen to, but it's not the only the only thoughts out there. It's not the only opinion out there. And at the end of the day, that's all it is. It's an opinion. It's me relaying my experience with a song in words. So, those are my thoughts on Swan's Helpless Child. This is where you guys come in, hit me up, let me know, right? Give me your perspective, your experience with this, how it makes you feel, and maybe even your interpretation of how things come together. I am more than open to hearing other perspectives on this, especially since I don't get it, right? Obviously, I mean, this was a highly suggested song. Swans is a huge band. They've been requested a lot ever since I checked out that first track of theirs about a year ago. So maybe I'm just missing something. Maybe it's context, maybe it's perspective, maybe it's something else that I don't even know yet. I'm willing to give it a second chance, especially if you tell me, give me a bit of a map on how to further appreciate what's going on here. So, like I said, let me know. Put some comments down there. Let me know what's going on. Above the comment section is a description box, and there's a link for Linktree. Take you to this menu right here. It has links for everything related to the channel. You can pick up some merch. Join the Patreon where you can vote on future songs and themes. Follow me on Twitter. Join the Discord community. Submit a special selection. There's a lot of stuff in there, man. Go check it out. I think you'll be surprised. Above the description box, like, subscribe, or ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. We have one more video that came out 13 minutes ago. We're looking at another Silent Planet track. If you enjoyed what you heard yesterday, you'll probably want to check that one out. I know I'm stoked. I really loved what we heard yesterday, even if, like I said yesterday, I don't want to hear it again. I think they did a phenomenal job on it. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. We'll have our penultimate otherworldly song and our final special selection for the week. Until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.